If you could see what your brain is doing right now, you would probably panic. At this exact moment, a significant portion of what you experience as reality is being fabricated. Quick note, if these cognitive glitches fascinate you, hit like and subscribe. It helps keep these system reports running. Right now, you are not perceiving the world as it is. You are experiencing a best-guess narrative your brain has stitched together in real time. Your mind hates empty space. It hates uncertainty. And when it encounters missing information, it doesn't pause, it doesn't hesitate, and it definitely doesn't admit ignorance. It lies. What you are witnessing is a core programming error known as confabulation. Think of it as your brain's autofill function for reality, and it's far more aggressive than you realize. This isn't about occasional forgetfulness or small memory glitches. Confabulation is a continuous process, a background operation. Your brain constantly fabricates memories, reasons, explanations, and even sensations to fill gaps it cannot resolve. And it does all of this without notifying you. That's the dangerous part. When your memory fails, your mind doesn't show a blank screen. When your perception breaks down, it doesn't display a loading icon. Instead, it instantly generates a plausible fiction and presents it to you as fact. You don't feel like you're guessing. You feel like you're seeing. In classic split-brain experiments, patients were shown an image to only one hemisphere of the brain. That hidden information triggered an action they could not consciously explain. When asked why they acted that way, their brain didn't say, "I don't know." It instantly invented a detailed, logical explanation, one that had nothing to do with the truth, and they believed it completely. You have that same interpreter module running in your head right now. It constantly generates stories to make your behavior feel coherent. Why you bought that expensive item, why you're in a bad mood, why you fell in love with that person. You feel certain about these explanations, but many of them are constructed after the decision, not before. This glitch exists because in our evolutionary past, certainty mattered more than accuracy. When our ancestors heard movement in tall grass, the brain didn't have time to analyze probabilities. It had to decide immediately, predator or wind. A brain paralyzed by missing data didn't survive. A brain willing to invent a coherent story did. Evolution favored confident hallucination over hesitant truth. A smooth narrative, even a false one, allowed action, and action meant survival. But in the modern world, this ancient feature has become a liability. It makes us stubborn in arguments because we remember events differently. It makes us overconfident because we've invented logic that doesn't actually exist. It creates a reality model glitch where the line between observation and fabrication disappears. You are navigating your life using a map filled with imaginary landmarks, and you trust that map completely. The autofill is so seamless that you've probably confabulated multiple details in the last hour alone without ever noticing the flicker. Your mind hides its own ignorance behind absolute certainty. So the question isn't whether your brain is lying to you. The real question is how much of your current life is built on stories that were never true. This glitch doesn't stop at perception or memory. It goes deeper, into the core of who you think you are. If you look at your life story, you probably assume you're watching a documentary, but in reality, your brain is acting like a frantic editor. It cuts out contradictions, smooths over inconsistencies, and when necessary, it films entirely new scenes to make the plot feel coherent. This is the identity glitch. We don't just fill in gaps about what happened yesterday, we fill in gaps about our entire personality. That's why two people can remember the same childhood moment in completely different ways. Neither of them is necessarily lying. Their brains simply filled the missing pieces with different stories, each one supporting the version of themselves they currently believe in. Your identity isn't a solid structure, it's a moving mosaic, and many of its tiles are made of thin air. The clearest evidence for this comes from what neuroscientists call the interpreter. The left hemisphere of the brain contains a module whose job is simple: observe behavior and immediately explain it. In a famous split brain experiment, researchers gave a command to the right hemisphere of a patient, one the left hemisphere couldn't access. The command was simple: walk. The patient stood up and began leaving the room. When asked why he was walking, the speaking part of the brain didn't say, "I don't know." It instantly replied, "I'm going to the kitchen to get a soda." That explanation felt real, logical, certain. It was also completely false, and the patient believed it without hesitation. This process isn't rare, it's happening to you constantly. You open your phone and your brain explains it as research or relaxation, when in reality you're responding to a dopamine signal you never consciously felt. We are the last people to know why we do what we do, yet we are the first to provide confident explanations. Imagine living with a roommate who lies to you every day, but does it so convincingly that you never doubt them. That roommate is your own mind. It constructs a self-model that is far more consistent and rational than you actually are. In reality, you are messy, inconsistent, driven by impulses that have no clear logic. Confabulation hides that. It creates a logic mask. That's why you can stay in a bad relationship or a dead-end job and generate a list of perfectly reasonable explanations for why it's the right choice. When you don't understand why someone else acted the way they did, your brain doesn't sit with uncertainty. It autofills their motives: malicious, lazy, arrogant, brilliant. You aren't interacting with people. You're interacting with the stories your brain wrote about them. This creates a massive reality model failure, where everyone is reacting to fictional versions of each other. The friction in your life, the arguments, the resentment, the silent anger, often has less to do with what actually happened and more to do with what your brain invented to explain it. You are living in a world where missing information has been paved over with your own projections, and you trust that world completely. So how do you fix a system that lies to you by design? You don't. You can't delete the autofill code from your brain. It's not a bug you can remove. It's part of your neural architecture, just as automatic as your heartbeat. Your mind will always try to fill the gaps. The only thing you can change is whether you treat those fabrications as truth. The patch for this reality model glitch is a manual override called radical uncertainty. It requires you to install a delay. Most people hear a story, feel a sensation, recall a memory, and immediately accept it as reality. The override forces you to create a waiting room in your mind, a space where information sits before it becomes belief. This feels uncomfortable because your brain is not built for empty space. It wants closure. It wants certainty. To apply the patch, you have to practice one of the rarest phrases in human cognition: "I don't know." That phrase is not weakness, it's a system safeguard. The moment you feel absolutely certain about why something happened, why someone acted a certain way, why you feel the way you do, why your past unfolded as it did, that is when the glitch is most active. Certainty is the warning signal. When it appears, pause and run a diagnostic check. Is this a recorded fact, or is my brain smoothing over missing data? If you can't verify it with external evidence, treat it as provisional, not false, but not real yet. This means learning to see the holes in your own story without rushing to fill them. Most people can't tolerate that. They choose a complete lie over an incomplete truth. If you ignore this glitch, you live inside a structure built by a narrator you cannot audit. You repeat the same mistakes because the story already explains why the last one wasn't your fault. You stay stuck in bad situations because your brain has generated a logic that makes staying feel reasonable. You aren't learning, you're reinforcing a script. But when you start noticing the flicker, when you stop trusting seamless explanations, the system behaves differently. You become less reactive, more analytical, harder to manipulate. Not because you feel better, but because you see less fiction. You stop being a character inside the story and become the one questioning the author. You realize that the map in your head is not the territory, and the narrative you live by is not the world itself. The glitch never disappears, but once you can see it, it loses its authority, and that's the update. If this report helped you detect the gaps in your own reality, synchronize with the network. Subscribe for future system reports, and use the like button to help this data reach other units. Stay awake. The system is always running.